CBC Award finalists have been announced. Please consider 9-panel grid for voting. Another Wednesday's come and gone, and I've got some comics. Let's talk about them. Hey, welcome to 9-panel grid. This week, we've seen classical monstrosities, xenomorphic outbreaks, and a raccoon exorcist. But we're going to kick things off this week with Aliens vs. Avengers #1, written by Jonathan Hickman with artwork by Asad Ribic. I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised by this, as I didn't really have high expectations for a crossover of this magnitude, as I feel like it could really lean cheesy so easily. But given the nature of the creative team behind this, I had to dive in and kind of take a look at what was going on. And this, honestly, was the most Hickman-y book that I've read probably within the last couple years. It leans so heavily into the notions that he loves to play with, right? It gets real sciencey. It gets into problem solving at a big level, and he works with characters that you could tell he just has a love and care for. It also melds the two worlds between, like, the alien world with Wayland Yutani and the Marvel universe much better than I ever thought that they actually could. This was a fun book. I'm absolutely going to be along for the ride here, and seeing that they're marrying the team that actually brought, the 2015 Secret Wars to a culmination, how could this not be a win for them? So great writing, great artwork, really exciting notions that they're going to be playing with this kind of Elseworlds multiversal look at the Marvel universe. And I can't wait to see where they take it. All right, next up, let's talk Berserker, The Lost Book of B, written by Matt Kindt with Keanu Reeves, with artwork by Ron Garney. Seeing that we have the original creative team back on the book, back, working in the world of Berserker, I gotta say, like, it was really exciting seeing them kind of take the reins back, as we've gotten a couple one-shots now with different creative teams, and they've been extraordinarily fun, and I kind of like seeing our main character kind of navigate these different landscapes, right, in different times, because he's this immortal being. But having Matt Kindt and Keanu Reeves and Ron Garney back was truly something special, as it felt very much akin to the original series, more so than I think I even realized here until I read this. The Matt Kindt crafted a really special story here, and I think it ties into that original series as well, as they kind of work with this cult of Anute, the cult of the main character who were trying to seek immortality, or at least study immortality through Keanu's character. Really fun things that they're playing with here, as Keanu's character is working along with Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan kind of has learned how to control him, albeit for a short period of time, because we also know that being an immortal, the only thing that lasts forever truly is going to be him. So I like some of the storytelling beats that they work with within the storyline. I like how they, for a temporary time, control Keanu's character. It's really cool, and I gotta say, there are beats within this story, some storytelling things that happen. Well, here's the thing, spoilers, they straight up put Keanu in a catapult full of dead bodies. I'll let you see that for yourself, though. So this was a really fun reintroduction to the storyline of our main character, and it kind of plays into some notions that maybe they pick up in future storylines here. So I'm super excited to see where they take it. Moving from a Berserker to a Batman, let's talk Detective Comics 1088, written by Ram V with artwork by Guillaume March. So this is the penultimate issue of the epic storyline that Ram V has been crafting, and it does a good job at wrapping most of the plot threads up, albeit I feel like, honestly, the artwork is a little bit of a letdown. Guillaume March has done work within the Batman universe with other writers, but I feel like this particular issue felt a little bit rushed, felt a little bit muddy. It felt like a jobber level of effort towards it, rather than someone who kind of put a lot of love and care behind it. Maybe he was a fill-in artist that wasn't necessarily behind the reins from the get-go. Time will tell on that stuff. Who knows? But Ram V, it did an okay job here. I think that everything wrapped up a little bit too tidy, a little bit too easy for this being the penultimate issue, but I'm really curious to see how the epilogue plays out, as a lot has changed for Bruce and a lot has changed for the relationships that he has within the Bat family, and honestly his relationship to Gotham as a whole as well. So there's a lot of different things that he's going to be able to play with, and the next writer should be able to pick up on some of those if they would like to, and kind of really still work within some of those same ideas. So I love what they did with some of the characters here, particularly Mr. Freeze. I thought had a really fantastic arc within this storyline here, and it kind of culminates in a really cool way. But again, like it felt too easily wrapped up here, and I think that with one more issue here to kind of give a breather and kind of let the story go, I think that there's going to be an avenue where he can wrap things up really nicely. As a penultimate issue, though, felt a little bit rushed. Next up, we have John Constantine Hellblazer, Dead in America, number 8, written by Simon Spurrier with artwork by Lisandro Esterin. This was a twistfully playful issue of this book, and I think that Simon Spurrier must have had a lot of fun writing this, as, man, like, Constantine, depending on, I guess, what side of the pond you're on. The notion of that name and how the pronunciation is played on so wickedly, and it's I don't know, it brought a grin to my face every single time that it came out. So this issue sees Constantine in hell along with his captive, who he's kind of using as a bloodhound, basically, to find the dust so he can bring it back to Morpheus and kind of end his quest. And some of that kind of works in his favor, some of it doesn't. But in true Hellblazer fashion, we know that there's always an ace up John's sleeve, and he definitely pulls it out. Now, what he does with that and where it goes in the overall story that we're playing with, we don't know. And that's the best part about it, is that we're kind of coming to the end of this. John has put pieces in place, and I can't wait to see how they finalize all these things, because as we know, Constantine will always have, the one up on whoever he's going against, whether it be the smallest puppets or the Grand Master, right? Doesn't matter. He's always one step ahead of you. So I'm really curious to see how this all plays out. The other part is that Simon Spurrier, I love the way that he crafts the storyline and how he plays with the notion of hell and how it mimics some of the things in life, in our real life, and how it mimics John Constantine's overall viewpoint of America as a whole. Really playful stuff here. Like I said, it's twistedly fun. That's the best way that I can put this book. I had a lot of fun with it, and I think you will too. Next up, let's talk Nice House by the Sea, number 2, written by James Tynan with artwork by Alvaro Martinez Bueno. This was a letdown. This was a big letdown, as I was so excited by what they had kind of put forth with issue number 1, being that we had an entire new cast of people and an entire new alien that was kind of navigating all these people through this world, and the notions of why these people were saved from this apocalyptic event were kind of explored more. But this issue, we go right back to the original group and right back to the old notions that we were playing with, and right back to the thing that quite honestly bored me about the first series, being Nice House by the Lake. James has a way of crafting a story that totally gets its hooks in me right from the get-go, and then totally drags me through the story in a way that feels so unsatisfying. And I can tell that this is going to be right back to where we started here. It's honestly frustrating because I want to like this so much. I think that the ideas are big and bold. The artwork is fantastic in this. There's a painterly quality. There's digital aspects to it that are used craftfully, thoughtfully. But the storyline, just like, it was a letdown. It was a bummer. I'm kind of ticked off at the issue because I gave him another chance and I gave this book another chance, and it set me up and then it knocked me down. So, Nice House by the Sea number 2. If you read it, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. All right, let's talk Saga number 68, written by Brian K. Vaughan with artwork by Fiona Staples. I enjoyed this issue, but I feel like what you see is what you get with almost every single issue of Saga. I feel like they save the big juicy stuff for the end of an arc or the end of, a big sweeping storyline, and we're not quite there yet. So we get another day in the life kind of issue here as we see Hazel with some friends, and we see Hazel's mom working the job that she's kind of just puttering through, but also not giving the time and attention to her family, which is basically what we've seen from the very onset of Saga as a series itself. The one interesting thing is that I do love seeing Hazel and Squire continue to grow and develop into these characters that we're following with. It is very interesting seeing how we've basically seen them as, well, in these cases, babies all the way up to their teenage years. And some of the moments in this book are truly heartbreaking, as you want to like basically scream out to these characters, hey, pay attention, look towards this. You're missing some things that are happening with these characters. It is truly a slice of life book put through the lens of a sci-fi fantasy world, and I think that they lean more into that slice of life in a very effective way. So again, nothing life-changing, nothing about this issue is going to push the narrative forward so much as, small little things here that are going to play out in the future. But it was an effective issue. It just didn't do anything to change your mind if you didn't like Saga or if you did like Saga. It's very much in its lane. It knows what it's doing. Next up, with the only magazine format book this week, let's talk Savage Sword of Conan #4, with a variety of writers and artists here telling mini stories. So this is the onset of the Blackstone saga, and I gotta say, I'm super hyped for this storyline kind of kicking off here. Jim Zub has done a fantastic job on Conan, on Savage Sword of Conan, and crafting this storyline, and I am definitely along for the ride. We get the first inklings and notions of what the Black Stone is and kind of where the storyline is going to be taken, as Conan has mysterious visions of a possible future that could be taking place and maybe some of the powers that this Black Stone has over people. And it's super interesting. The artwork was fantastic, and we get, like I said, just a little glimpse, as there's kind of like 4 little mini stories on here. So we get to visit Solomon Kane with Patrick Zurcher telling his story, which is, again, been a lot of fun here, dealing with occult storylines here, a different timeline, not necessarily totally in the Conan world here, but adjacent to it. A lot of fun with that. I like seeing that story continue to grow and, develop as time goes on. But again, it's all about the Conan mythos with this book here. So you're getting one-shot stories, you're getting a deepening of the character, and you're getting a lot of Jim Zub's insight on this, as there's some prose that's going on. You get a little bit of backstory as he's kind of telling some of the thought patterns behind why he's doing what he's doing and where he's going to be taking these stories. And you get an excellent pinup of kind of our cast of characters done by Roberto Della Torre. So if you're a Conan fan, this isn't necessarily essential to the story that's happening within Conan the Barbarian, but if you're enjoying that, you're going to enjoy the heck out of this magazine style format issue as well, because within newsprint and the black and white of this book here, it's just such a nostalgic, like fan service kind of trip down memory lane of the Savage Sword of Conan magazine issues that we had way back in the 80s, 70s, earlier on, even from there. So Savage Sword of Conan #4 was an excellent time, and I thoroughly encourage you to pick it up. Next up, let's talk Ultimate X-Men #6, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. So we can just say it, right? We can let everyone in on the secret. This is really just Runaways in the Ultimate Universe. Yep, it totally is. That's the notion that they're playing with the characters that they're developing, and kind of the notion of mutants as a whole within this universe. They're dabbling more with magic, I feel like, than mutants. And now with this issue kind of telling the story of a secret society that has developed within this universe and the parents that are behind that, this is totally 100% Runaways. But I'm kind of here for it too. I think that's, if you have a background with these characters and with that notion, I think that they're going to be able to play with this in a really fun way. Hopefully it's not a beat for beat retread of what we've already gotten, because the original Runaways was truly fantastic. But I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to be able to do something with this that's wholly different while having that same tone and feel. So it's a little bit exciting there. At the onset of this issue, I was honestly a little bit ready to write it off as it felt like a lot of sitting around and talking, kind of an exposition-y issue, but it ramps up pretty quickly. And when it does ramp up and we start learning some of these things and start seeing some things take place, it gets pretty exciting. Again, this isn't anything that's going to change any opinions of Peach Momoko. Either I feel like you love the creator or you kind of dislike them. Not going to change that feeling, but I feel like once you get a feeling for what they're trying to do, it can be exciting if you kind of let yourself live in this world and just accept it for what it is. So, Ultimate X-Men #6, I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm cautiously optimistic. Next up, let's talk Universal Monsters Frankenstein #1, written and drawn by Michael Walsh. I was so incredibly excited to see Michael Walsh back on a book, as I feel like it's been a couple years since I've seen him, being that he had his creator-owned series, The Silver Coin, that has been on hiatus for just a little bit. And seeing his artwork again and seeing his writing again was just drew me right back into like understanding the reasons why I loved his work so much. This issue had such great atmosphere and such great pace, and knowing kind of that within these Universal Monster storylines, they can't tread on what's already been told within the Universal Monster movies. Seeing how they have to kind of work within those boundaries is really exciting, as I feel like it forces a new level of creativity for these people to take. And Michael Walsh takes that and runs with it, as we're kind of introduced to this ancillary character who is the son of a recently deceased person's whose hands become the hands of the Frankenstein monster. So we kind of see him and we see everything that happens with the monster coming to life again through the eyes of this boy. And it's really entertaining, and it's a really fun new way to kind of witness all of the things that happen. The color palette that they chose to use on this book is just so appropriate, as it is very bright, but it's very sickly. There is deep greens when you're looking at the monster himself, but there's always like this hue, this tone of green that's kind of just like enveloped over everything, that just makes everything look diseased and sickly. So, really fun, really exciting issue. I can't wait to see where Michael Walsh takes this, because I feel like he is the absolute best creator to take the Frankenstein monster storyline and show it to us through a new lens. All right, let's talk William of Newbury #4, written and drawn by Michael Avon Oeming. This has slowly but surely become one of my favorite books that hit the stand month over month. And I think that a lot of it comes down to the fact that Michael is crafting the story wholly himself. He is the writer, he is the artist, and having that full control over this storyline has really allowed him to take these notions that he wants to play with and fully develop them. You could tell that this is something that's been kind of probably ruminating for a little bit. This is not something that has been slapdash put through. This follows the story of William of Newbury, our title character, which is actually based on true storylines that have played out. And I love how playful this book can be. This is the final issue of the first arc of this storyline. And what we saw last time is that William had basically been captured by Edward, another one of the people, the priests that are with the church. And Edward has totally been against what William's always been trying to do. But seeing that the fairy world has kind of taken control over some of the people within the township, Edward knows he has to lean on William, and he has to basically accept what William is doing and the notions that this stuff can be true, even though they kind of live within the godly world and they follow the words of the Bible, basically, which don't play with those kind of notions whatsoever. So I love how there's a back and forth there. But my absolute favorite thing of this issue, wholly, is Winnie the Thief coming through and saving the day. What a fantastic character beat for this person who, in issue 1, was trying to steal things from William. They were just thieves on the roadside that very easily could have stopped William and stopped the storyline from progressing. And to go from that moment all the way to this total character arc turn where they end up saving the day, Man, what an awesome way to finalize the first arc and finalize this issue. I loved that. I love what Michael is doing with the storyline in this, and knowing that the characters will continue and will move forward here as the series has not ended yet. Man, I loved knowing that this will come back again here, because I gotta say, I've just this whole book basically, which is kind of like Hellboy meets Bone, is exactly what I've been looking for in a book. So, man, I love this. I think you'll love it too. I can't wait for this book to come back. Next up, let's talk X-Men number 3, written by Jed MacKay with artwork by Ryan Stegman. I want to love this book. I really, really do. I'm an X-Men fan, and I love the 90s X-Men, which is definitely the era that they are leaning on with this new relaunch. But I just can't. This this whole storyline, it feels like retreads. It feels like repeats of things that we've already lived through and seen. And there are some exciting notions to it. I feel like this is probably the best paced issue that we've gotten from X-Men so far. And Stegman's artwork is very Stegman-y. He's doing great work. I just don't know if it necessarily fits with what I anticipate from an X book. There's nothing new and bold about it. There's nothing exciting about it. It all feels like a retread, and it feels like such a letdown, because more than almost any book within the Marvel universe, I feel like X-Men is the one where you should be experimental. I mean, we're talking about evolution. We're talking about the nature of evolution. They should be playing with those notions, and they just kind of aren't, and they just kind of don't, and it's a dud. Um, Whatever. I'm just disappointed. It's not the book for me, apparently. This will probably be the last issue that I review for X-Men moving forward. That's not to say the entire line isn't doing it for me, but seeing that this is very much just repeat, 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 it's not the book for me. Next up, let's talk Zatanna, Bring Down the House number 3, written by Mariko Tamaki with artwork by Javier Rodriguez. This miniseries has made me fall down the rabbit hole. I love what they're doing in this. Mariko Tamaki is crafting an excellent story that shows us this character who has like basically disavowed anything about her past and anything that could be dangerous or lead her to danger, being that her past revolved around the fact that she could be responsible, or definitely is responsible, for the disappearance and or death of her father. uh, this kind of makes her, view those things. It makes her face her demons, and we're seeing that slowly but surely. And I love the how they're crafting this story here, as the kind of council of magicians are after her, and she has these unlikely allies that are trying to help her through this storyline, and she quite honestly falls down the rabbit hole or the bunny well. Javier Rodriguez, the way he's crafting this story, being that it revolves around magic, was like the absolute perfect choice for this book. He's crafting things that are rooted in reality and very grounded, but when they need to get magical, they lean that way very hard, very heavily, and very effectively. The color palette that they choose in this also can stay within the realistic realm, but again, just like Rodriguez's artwork, when it needs to get magical, it gets very playful, it gets very colorful, but in the appropriate way. It's not garish and ghastly. It's very appropriate. It's whimsical, which is weird to say, because there are parts of this book that can get weird and partially gruesome. But again, it's playful in just the right way, where it's like a pinch of sugar, not a pound of it. I love what they're doing in this. This is a fantastic book to dive into, whether or not you have any background with Zatanna, considering this is Black Label and out of continuity. So if you're a fan of magical notions within comic books, I think this is absolutely the right book for you. And with our runner up pick of the week, let's talk Grommets number 4, written by Rick Remender and Brian Posehn, with artwork by Brent Parson. This is just the nostalgia trip that everyone wants and needs in their life if you were born and raised in the 80s. And I'm sorry, if you throw Escape from New York references in any comic book, you're going to get top marks. I love what they do here. This is basically the party issue. This is the teenager whose parents are away and a party gets thrown at the house. I love how they play with that and kind of work that right into the storyline where our main character has now just learned that he's just now kind of gained friendship and put his roots down in this new city that he's living in, and then learns that he's going to have to move, all while navigating this party landscape as well. It's so true to the teenage experience, and it kind of draws you right back in and makes you remember, yeah, being a teenager, dude, it's hard. And being an adult, we know is hard too, but man, it puts you right back into that viewpoint and makes you look through that lens and you realize, yeah, it is. It's a really difficult time in your life to navigate, and you're watching these characters move through it, and it just makes you feel, right? This issue made me feel so deeply. I love it. Now, with all those things happening, that's not to say it's not playful as well, because while these emotional heartstrings are being pulled at, that doesn't mean that the characters aren't truly inherently real, I guess, right? Because they are teenagers. They trip and they stumble and they do selfish things, and it all just feels heightened but very real. I love what they're doing with these characters. I love the story that they're crafting on this. It's playful, it pulls at your heartstrings, and it's just so true to the landscape of growing up in the 80s. And with our top comic of the week, let's talk Sacrificers number 11, written by Rick Remender with artwork by Andre Lima Araujo. This was an emotional roller coaster of an issue, as we're still living kind of with Saluna, as she has now met up with and has been traveling with Pigeon's family, or at least the surviving members of Pigeon's family. And it is such a heartbreaking story, as she knows who she is and she knows what the world is now facing, with the gods basically being a little bit out of control, and then being on the search for Pigeon and kind of, I don't know, playing with these notions of being vengeful gods, right? I think that the main thing that this issue is trying to bring out, the story it's trying to tell, is it better to live under the thumb of someone or defy a god knowing that you'll die doing so? It's really fantastic. I think there's really deep ideas, and I think that Rick Remender is crafting one of the best stories that he's ever written, because it's not one tone, it's not one note. There's a lot of different ways that you can look at this book from a lot of different viewpoints within these characters. And being that we're with Saluna now, it's just so interesting knowing that she's lived within the realm of gods and she's lived their world and lived through their eyes, and now she's with the people who she thought were basically, held up, where they were, the gods were responsible for them. But now she's seeing, no, they've been under the gods' thumbs for the entire time. So I can't wait to see how that develops and grows, and how she kind of works her way through that world with that knowledge, being that she still technically kind of is a god. This issue has a moment that happens that literally made me gasp. And that doesn't happen all that often. There's not a lot of times within comics where you have a visceral reaction towards something that happens. This issue did. It made me incredibly worried for some of the characters within this book, so much so that I had to set it down for a second. That's the kind of emotional weight that we're dealing with within Sacrificers. I love this series. I love what they're doing with these characters. Rick Remender is crafting one of the best stories of his career, and I can't wait to see where they continue to take this and grow and develop more and more and more. So that's what I've got for you this week, but I'm more curious. What did you read, and what were your thoughts? Do me a favor, like, share, and subscribe, and be part of the panel. Leave me a comment down below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll talk to you again next week.